Alrighty, so it is a new day. Yesterday we decided to swap out the transmission finally and got a good test drive out of this thing. So I think now that all the mechanicals issues have been fixed on the car, I think it's finally time that I can start opening up all these other mods that I had for this thing that I've kind of just had sitting around my garage. So I got the wheels, I got a different little spoiler, and some other little odds and ends to try and make this thing look better. Now, this thing has had a rough life. You know, it's got bumps and bruises all over the place. I'm just trying to make, a fun little daily car. Just kind of scratch that itch before these cars just become unobtainable, because these are already very difficult to find in decent condition, and even harder to find where they're not rotted out from the wheel wells. So I think the next stage of this car will probably be paint and body, but for now I'm just going to try and make it look as good as I can working with what I got. So these have been sitting in here for already a minute, and I'm trying to not damage them. I have not seen them at all. I know what I got, but I've not seen them actually opened up since I bought them. Alright, let me use two hands real quick. Alright, there we go. And big reveal, it's the back side of the wheel. So it looks like we got some lug nuts, some center caps, so that is good. And now, just to unstick this tire and see how she looks. Oh yeah, that is a pretty nice wheel. So if anyone's wondering, these are Koenig hexagram, I believe, and I decided to go with a General GT Max. It's not a very expensive tire, not super sticky or anything, but it is a great tire for daily driving. That's why I bought it. I've had a pretty good experience with these tires specifically, so that's why I got them. Oh, that's pretty cool. It even has a little replace tire monitor right here, so once you start seeing these letters, it's pretty much time to get new tires. So pretty much anytime you hit these little bumps in the middle, these are your wear indicators. That's when you're supposed to change your tires. So these are pretty good tires. They got really good grip overall, just in general, especially for a light little car that's all-wheel drive. I think these are going to do fantastic. Pretty low rolling resistance, so it should get decent gas mileage, and I did go with a slightly wider tire than what it's got now. So this is a 225 45 17, and the offset of the wheel is a, let's see, it's somewhere around here. Let me see. I don't know what the offset is. I think it's plus 30 or plus 25. But we'll see. So supposedly these are the correct fitment for an Impreza, and they look, pretty shallow, not super deep dish or anything. So they look like they should fit just fine. Did order these off of Martini Works. They have a pretty good selection of wheels and the whole fitment calculator and all that good stuff. So if you're ever looking at wheels, I recommend them. They came mounted and balanced already, so I don't have to worry about that. So now all I got to worry about is mounting these and sending the car off to an alignment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and slap these guys on. Alright, well, first order of business, like always, get the car up on the air, and I'm happy I can finally put these wheels on, because these are absolutely trash. These wheels are trash. Even the tires are absolute garbage. They're all mismatched. So they definitely need to be replaced. I don't think they've ever been cleaned once. But in the meantime, before I install the new tire, I'm actually going to go ahead and raise the front end just a smidge, about half an inch, to match the rear, just because, if you've noticed, I got that stink bug rake. So I'm still waiting on my rear coilovers. It's a 5-week to 6-week wait, so I'd rather just drive the car. Who cares if the rear shocks are blown? It's not going to affect the car that much. So I think we'll be fine for a month of just light commuting, nothing crazy. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead, loosen this little collar up. I'm going to mark the upper ones and turn the whole thing. So with these BC coilovers, your height adjustment is separate from your coil preload. So if I were to tighten these, I'm going to squeeze that coil and essentially make the suspension stiffer and give it less travel on the coil itself. Like, the coil is just physically going to have less room for it to compress. So that's the good thing, is that you can just loosen this lower collar and this body is threaded, so you can just thread the actual shock body itself up. And that's how you change your height without changing your tension on your spring. So let me go ahead and knock that out real quick, and then we'll see how the car looks with the front and rear wheels. So as always, you always want to have some kind of tape measure. Measure your distance on what's going to be a fixed point and another fixed point. That way you can kind of keep track of how much you've raised it. For me, I already kind of evened out both coilovers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to count the turns. Since it's the same thread pitch, they should all raise about the exact same. And then just to be sure, I'll take a little measurement and match it with the opposite side. And as always, go ahead and check your progress as you're going. It doesn't take very much. 5 turns already netted me, damn tape measure, about a 1/4 inch. Or actually 1/2 inch, my bad. Which is roughly what I want. So 5 turns will give me that 1/2 inch raise that I need, that a lot of people need, you know. No one can complain about an extra 1/2 inch. Go ahead and tighten this collar down, snug it up. This will essentially lock the threads in, or lock against the threads, and make sure your adjustment does not change as you're driving. And just like that, we got our first wheel on. So already kind of looking right off the bat, looks like I do have a smidge of poke. Nothing too crazy though, nothing a little bit of camber won't help. I think once the tire comes down and it actually cambers in, I think it'll just barely kiss the fender. So we might be doing some fender rolling in the future, or just giving it a little bit of camber, but nothing too crazy. One thing I did notice that I'm not a huge fan of is that these wheels are not hub-centric. So what does it mean by being hub-centric versus lug-centric? Pretty much means that the wheel gets centered by the lug holes versus the center of the hub. That's not a big issue. You can just go on Amazon, buy some hub-centric little spacers. Well, they're not spacers. They're essentially hub-centric rings that essentially fill in this gap and can modify your center hub to the larger outer hub of the wheel, or inner hub of the wheel. And that way your wheel will sit true a lot easier, and it can help eliminate any added stress on not only the lug bolts, but the suspension as well, because the wheel will be, you know, for lack of a better word, it'll just be better centered, you know? So overall, you'll get a smoother ride at the end of the day. So, all right, now just to repeat this process 3 more times, at least just the coilovers once, and then just replace the rear ones, and then we'll get to see this thing on the ground with its new wheels. All right, now as I near the end of the wheels, one note I do want to show you guys is take the stupid sticker off. All it's gonna do, like, yeah, I guess you can flex that you got new tires or whatever, but all it's gonna do is just, all that glue is just gonna go in here in the middle of this deep tread, and it's just gonna get gross. And I know you're gonna have just a bunch of crap stuck to it, and it's just gonna look like an eyesore after 100 or so miles. But, and then also one big thing with these tires is that they are rotational. So pay attention, if your tires are rotational, pay attention that they're rotating the correct way. So, all right, let me toss this last one in and we'll move on to the next step. And of course, the most important step of changing wheels is torque them down. So always follow the manufacturer's torque specs, or, you know, for the wheels or for your car or whatever. But for me, I'm doing about 90 foot-pounds. It's what I always run. I think on the Mustang I go a little bit tighter just because I got the ARP studs and because I road raced that car. But always torque down your wheel specs. Don't trust that impact or the air gun. You know, depending on your air pressure and depending on your battery level, your your gun will torque it at different specs. Trust me. Once you actually put a torque wrench onto the lug nuts, you'll see just how different they are. Alright, and now for the next round of mods, I do have this version 5 STI wing, or spoiler, or whatever you want to call it. I think it'll look way better on there, and a MagnaFlow exhaust that I got from a buddy of mine. It's not the best, but I don't think it's going to be too loud just because we still have cats. Probably going to leave the factory resonator in there, just to give it just a little bit of sound and a little bit better look on the rear end, just because you got that rinky-dinky little tailpipe right there. So let's go ahead, toss the exhaust on first since I already got it up on jack stands, and we'll do the wing next. Now, anytime that you're working around your exhaust, especially on a car that's never been modified, this is what's so much fun about this car, is that I'm the first person to modify the entire thing, other than the front bumper that I already had. A little bit of lubrication will go a heck of a long way for you to not, if I can actually not miss and make a mess. But quick tech tip, that'll help you a ton loosening these up. You can let these soak overnight or for a few days if you don't drive the car at all. I already know the ones up there are pretty loose, so if this exhaust doesn't fit that flange, then I guess we'll be installing the entire resonator. But that is still the factory resonator, still says Subaru on it. Car's pretty quiet. I just want a smidge of sound, just to know that it's even running. Nothing crazy. I'm not trying to be a total ricer boy out here, even though this is a little bit on the rice side. I just need a little bit of sound whenever I'm driving, just to kind of give it that little bit extra feel when you're trying to enjoy your car. You know, it's always nice when you can actually hear the engine, and it feels even better when it has a proper exhaust note. And boy, do I mean proper exhaust note. When you get the wrong exhaust, it'll absolutely make any engine sound like absolute garbage. So, alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and buzz these bolts off, and hopefully I don't break any of them. Alright, well, unfortunately, even with heat, they did not want to play ball. So, I just went ahead and loosened it up from the front. We'll just install the entire thing, see how that goes. Now, is your exhaust truly from Marketplace if you're not having to cut it off and modify it? So, unfortunately, the flanges did not line up here when I bolted up to the front. And it was also just a hair too long, so it was about this much too long. So this exhaust had already been modified prior to me owning it, so I don't feel bad about cutting it up and messing with it. So what I did was I cut it at the flange with just a regular grinder with a cutoff wheel, and shortened it up, kept test fitting and marking it until I got a good fitment, made sure it was bolted in the back. And once I got the fitment I wanted, that's where I decided to finish bolt everything else. So I bolted the flange back up to the exhaust, to the catalytic converter, and now I'll go ahead and do a couple little stitch welds to hold it. I'll pull it out of the car, finish weld it, and then I'll fully install the exhaust. Alrighty, so I have just two little tacks. They don't look the best because I did have to cut them off and redo them, just so I could get that flange nice and flat. I do have a small little gap I am going to have to fill in with wire, but I think it's doable. The pipe is a lot larger, and again, this thing had been cut and botched before, so I'm just going to take my time and really dial that in. Now that I fixed that, my hanger was not lining up prior, and now it looks like it's going to line up perfect. So I'll continue weld this guy up. And again, if you don't have a welder, it's totally fine. This is about $100 at an exhaust shop. Nothing that's gonna kill you or break the bank. Some places it might even be about $40. I believe I've gone to places where they charge about $20 to $40 a weld. So if they only have to do one joint, that's $40, and whatever the little install cost that they want to charge. So again, if you don't have a welder, this is absolutely still doable. There's a ton of local exhaust shops wherever you're at, or you can find a local welder that can help you out. So This isn't very difficult if you just got to do some light modifications on your exhaust. So I'll continue. I'll unbolt it now, fully weld it, and then bolt it back up, and then we'll see how she fits. Well, after having to fill in Mariana's trench, I don't know what this pipe is made out of, but it is not playing nice. So I know I got argon, I know I got a good wire. I did my best to clean it up, but it's just sputtering and spittering and just spitting all over the freaking place. And maybe that's why these welds look like this, and like that. So whatever this pipe is made out of, or whatever this little tail section is made out of, it's just not playing nice. Because I know when I weld this piece, it'll give me a nice little puddle, and then the moment I touch whatever this is, it just destroys my weld. So unfortunately, they're not the prettiest, but who cares? This is a rusty exhaust. It's enough to seal it up. No one's ever gonna see it, and hopefully it's enough to not fall off the car. So time to slap it on and move on to the next step. Also, in my defense, my batteries ran out on my auto darkening helmet, and I had to revert to, you know, the Stone Age of welding. And it's very difficult to hold this stupid thing while trying to hold that together and to get a good weld. So, yeah, this is my life right now. Alright, sweet. Now that we have a slightly better looking exhaust tip on there, hopefully it's not too loud. I'm really crossing my fingers it's not super loud and obnoxious. Next order of business will be this rear spoiler. So, luckily mine does come with the matching brake light. I'll just have to do a little bit of wiring right there. So, to get this guy out, we will just have to pop a couple nuts off by the looks of it, and we'll see where the rest of them are, how we can access them. So hopefully we don't have to really drill or do a whole lot of shenanigans to get this guy on. Alright, now after removing 4 bolts, 2 on each end, now this should lift right off. One sec, let me... Alright, cool. So after hitting this with a little bit of all-purpose cleaner and stealing a little bit of wiring from the old spoiler, we are now ready to install. Alright, so this is what it kind of evolved to. So, I need to drill 4 more holes and really figure out, probably widen some of these holes to really center the spoiler onto the trunk lid. So what I'm going to do to help me out, because it was just being a giant pain using threaded holes with bolts, so instead I went and bought the correct bolts, and I'm going to cut the heads off of them and essentially use them as studs. So I'll make my own studs, be able to line it up, and then I'm going to use a short stud as markers on these center holes to essentially give me a small little reference point where I can start to drill it, and then from there I'll make it bigger as needed. Alright, and finished product should look something like this. So using the stud method, line up, 2 holes, and then put 2 either of the existing bolts, if I can find them. I use these, I install them on the wing, and then as you align the wing with your corner holes using the long studs, these will naturally scratch the paint just a smidge, just enough to give you a reference point. And then go ahead, drill 2 holes, and then do the same thing for the back ones. So it's a little bit tedious, takes a long time, definitely need a hand. I definitely needed a hand to installing the wing and popping it on and off and all that good stuff. But in the end, it's all sealed up. Did a little dab of silicone on every single bolt hole just so it doesn't leak. And there's the finished product. So now we got a wing. So now I think the car's done enough for tonight. Let's get it outside and see how it looks. Alright, Mustang's back in the garage. Subaru's gonna be sleeping outside. But here is the absolute drastic change. What a little bit of set of wheels and tires, a little bit of adjustment on the suspension, and just a little spoiler can do. So, next step to finish off the visuals on this car. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath. We were pushing that heavy car up the driveway. But next step is to change this front bumper. I may or may not play with the headlights, and then also fix one of my pet peeves, which are these little sprayers, and also wrap up the interior. So the interior is still a little bit on the torn apart side, so all I got to do is just put a couple little panels back in, reinstall a stereo in this thing, and I think we should be 100% ready to go on this. So we'll continue that tomorrow. I had to get one more sound clip of the exhaust. Doesn't sound too bad. It's actually pretty subtle, so just how I wanted it. Just a smidge of noise, that's all I wanted. Nothing too crazy, nothing too racery. So maybe tomorrow, once I wrap up the bumper and the interior, we'll take it out for a test spin and see just how loud it is under actual load.